Most days, the reason I submitted to God like that was because I felt I had no other choice. I was holding on for dear life, and I needed God to help me be the kind of father that He entrusted His children to on this planet. And the weight that you saw in me was exactly that. I knew it was a serious job, and I didn't want my children being in their adulthood dealing with the things that I was dealing with, even on a small scale. I didn't want that. I wanted God involved in every decision. There were times I ran ahead of him and I got behind him and all of that we do in regular life. But when it came down to the day in and day out, I wanted God to lead because I was not equipped to do so, to be the kind of father and husband that I wanted to be.
In all of the good times and even the trials, through tears and through laughter, yeah, I know that I'll smile when I think of you. Smile for the things you do. Smile, God gave me you. You are a reason I smile. Yeah.
This is Behind Our Smiles.
Pursuing connection
And finding joy.
even in the struggle. Do you know what is more fun than seeing your grandbabies grow? There's not many things that's
I think
more
I know
fun.
the answer to the question. Is it rhetorical or
Is
is it
seeing your boys
Yes.
grow into fathers. I
Watching-
think it's amazing. It's more amazing than the baby sometimes.
watching our sons
Mm-hmm.
actually become dads has been one of the more rewarding things, and kind of surprisingly
Mm-hmm.
rewarding. I didn't know I was going to enjoy it quite so much.
Yeah, we recently had a chance to visit our son that was farther away and kind of see hands-on in the house, him doing all the dad things. And it makes me smile so much. Just, it's like watching your baby crawl for the first time. You're seeing him just take those baby steps into fatherhood and just, wanting them to be good dads. What a huge gift that is.
Yeah, and we had seen like his apartment before he was married, so we saw the place that he lives, and that in and of itself was an interesting. Just an interesting transition to watch your kids who have depended on you and lived in your space to go to their space.
Yes.
But now to go to his space where he's married
It's
and
a
has
family.
as a family that was very rewarding.
It's so fun.
And yeah, we're talking about dads today on the Behind Our Smiles Marriage Podcast. I'm Joe.
Tara.
And one of our favorite things about the podcast is when you share with us what makes you smile about your husband or wife. You can do that by dropping us a line anytime, Tara, T-A-R-A, at BehindOurSmiles.com. And Christina is sharing today about her husband, Ronald, says his passion, this is what makes her smile about Ronald, is his passion, dedication to protect and teach our children how to be better people. He shares his heart and loves all people. He leads by example and has a great sense of humor. Well, thank you so much, Christina, for sharing that. And Ronald, what an incredible thing to have said about you.
That's a common theme among women and men for the opposite way about what makes them smile about their husband. When we see them stepping up to be amazing fathers,
And yeah.
it really is an easy way to make your wife smile. And I've gotten so many messages and notes from women sharing that and what a gift that is to see your husband father well.
Yeah, and again, our daughter-in-laws have said the same thing about our sons, and that's really fun.
I think it's kind of tricky right now because as we're seeing him dad well, hopefully they both dad well, some of it we hope like, hey, was that an example that you said, right, Joe? Like, is that something they've learned from us? And then kind of, because you really can't divorce those two things about when you become a father, your own example of having a father, that's your only example, right, is the father you had. And so I think it's such a different experience for our kids who were raised with a stable, godly, loving father versus what you were born with.
Well, I got to tell you, it was kind of rewarding when we were visiting our son out of town because he and I were not a lot alike in the sense that he's more like you. I'm more the introvert.
Yeah.
He's the extrovert. And so when he said, I'm becoming more of an introvert like my dad, that was pretty cool.
There is an idea like when you get to a certain age, you feel like it's happened, like you've turned into, their parent. So there's many good things he's gotten from you. But I think just as we process a lot of this dad stuff, Joe, and every year, as Father's Day comes along, it, first of all, is a testimony to God's grace in our life and the way he's worked in you, Joe, because you have been such an amazing dad to our kids. And yet we go, what did you see growing up as what a dad is or what a dad does? And you're like, not this.
Right. Not
like
this.
the contrast is so strong. I mean, that's where we're glad for our kids that at least they are getting that head start in life by saying, okay, your dad isn't perfect. Your dad isn't God. Your dad's going to have flaws, but here are some good things I really want to take away from his example as I lead my own kids.
And I remember even when our kids were younger, telling them, hey, look, one day you're going to realize how young I really am at this. And the other part of that equation is this is my first time through it. So I kind of set them up early, not as an excuse, but as a way to prepare them that as your dad, I know right now when you're 2, 3, 4 years old, you think I'm amazing, but there will be, and obviously these conversations came when they were a little bit older, but there will be times when I let you down, when I'm not a perfect dad, but know that I love you. And I remember asking you occasionally, like, hey, do the kids know I love them? And you're always like, Joe, the thought has never crossed their mind. So in just kind of asking God to help lead me to be able to lead them.
And being intentional for you of finding good examples. And I guess sometimes in your situation, the only guideline is, okay, not what I saw at home.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what is, I just know what not to do. So I think about this in terms of the things that we're sharing with our boys when we have opportunity is that contrast. Because I think the first thing that came to mind is how you loved and supported me. I mean, that's like the first thing that came to mind when I thought of like, what makes you a good dad, or what is it we want to tell our sons about being a good dad? It's like, okay, baby aside, loving their mother is like the most amazing thing that you can do for that child. Versus like what you saw growing up.
Yeah, I saw my mom abused by my dad, and multiple foster homes where the similar things happened. And I don't know when or how far along I was in the process, but it was a revolutionary moment for me, or one of those moments when you're like, oh, I need to hold on to that. Was the greatest gift I can give my kids is to love their mom well. And I think over time you don't see it in the ebb and flow of life. You don't see it necessarily, but looking back, you see what an incredibly secure foundation that gave them, knowing that I did love their mom, and
right, versus that
their
tension,
mom loved their dad.
That tension that you felt, that even though you didn't necessarily feel loved, but the fact that the two people you know were your parents, like instinctually speaking, you know, and to know that there was constant fighting happening between them, and that your dad was the cause of your mom's pain in many cases. You don't even know how to process that as a kid, to go, that doesn't feel right. Or even thinking it's your fault that mom and that dad's not being nice to mom. And it just makes everything so complicated.
Yeah. Speaking of loving you more, one of our famous stories of Steve, I don't know how old he was at the time, but I would always spend time with our kids going to bed. And there were many nights where we did crazy things together at bedtime as I would tuck them in and just spend some time with them. Because one of the things that you and I learned early on, Tara, is that the big life questions from your kids don't come in the first 5 minutes. You need some time with them. But this one particular night, I had been out traveling and done some things, and I got home and I really wanted to spend some time with you, Tara. And so Steve was asking me to stay, you know, the way that he always did, like stalling. And I said, no, I'm going to go spend some time with your mom. I love you very much. It's time to go to bed. I'm going to go spend time with your mom. And he asked me a question in kind of a gotcha moment, right? Yeah, you love her more than me. Expecting me to say, Steve, no, that's not true. I love you.
I'll stay with you.
I looked at him and I knew there are certain times in our lives where you just know it's a teaching moment, and you know if you execute it correctly, it can be a lasting teaching moment. So I just looked him square in the eyes and I said, you're absolutely right. I do love your mom more. And I love you, but I'm going to go spend some time with her.
Well, now that like our kids are adults, you realize if I loved my adult kids more, it would be creepy and awkward in their adult lives. You know, speaking of just like the things you saw in your home in terms of violence, I thought one of the jobs that you've done really well with our kids is protection, and maybe overprotection. We've talked about this before.
Safety freak.
But protecting them from harm. Like, I've got to see where the potential harm is. And it's not always just the guy breaking down the door, because that wasn't something that happened, but who are they hanging out with? What are they watching? Are they being supervised? Will they get injured? And I think that's such a different contrast from your growing up, because, and I think in your case, your parents were the cause of harm.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a different way where you're saying, no, I'm going to make sure that my kids are protected. And I'm seeing that with our sons too, you know, as a baby stage, right? The car seat's got to be all the way right, and make sure they're breathing. Are they breathing? Double check.
Well, Steve, I was helping him when we were there. I was helping him move his car seat from one vehicle to the other. And I'm like, how tight do you have this thing? Like,
it's just that air protection. Like, I got to make sure, you know, they're safe, and not having, I think about how that's affected you, not feeling like someone was looking out for you.
And growing up there, it frustrated our kids at times because it meant we said no to things that other families were saying yes to. But now that our kids are older, you've had some great conversations with our sons, Tara, but this idea that they now get it. Now that they're having their own children, they understand, okay, that was not to withhold fun from me. That was because Dad saw something I didn't see in that moment.
Dad's watching.
Right.
What a great gift that is. Although with babies, there's car seats and all that. But I'm like, oh, toddlers come along, the danger just, multiplies. But when it comes to that harm, I thought to myself too, your ability to have self-control, right? Because some of that anger or that lack of harm comes from having no self-control. And the Bible tells us, fathers, don't provoke your children, right? Don't get so angry and so in your stuff that you provoke your children and you make them upset, versus having that self-control is another huge marker of us.
So before we go, before we go any further, I want to clarify that I was not a perfect dad
but like that's
by
the
any
goal.
stretch. Right, but because I remember many times you reminding me of that. Hey, Joe, this verse right here, do not provoke your children to anger.
And that's not saying we're perfect at that, but knowing that was like the goal when you saw parents or dads that had no self-control, how scary that is.
Oh, yeah. And not even being able to put my finger on
yeah.
it, especially in my childhood. It wasn't until I was much older, but I never wanted our kids to experience that. And yes, there were times that they saw their dad angry.
We all kind of had our moments where it's like, this is driving me crazy.
Right. There were times that I was not a great representation of Christ, if you will. But the one thing that we come back to over and over, and this is what you remind me of, is that we loved our kids passionate, fiercely, right? There was a fierce love for them. And so even when we didn't get it right, they never questioned their love. And I think for me, the problem was I knew I wasn't loved. Even though it's not true, that's what I believed to be true because of the actions. So when the abuse would happen or the neglect or whatever, I knew it was my fault because I'm not loved. And that really does a ton of damage in children.
Well, the other thing I appreciate about you, this kind of goes along with, again, when there's trouble and there's maybe anger or emotions, but through all the years of parenting, crises happen and varying degrees of crisis, run from just falling down and skinning your knee to like potential problems. And I've loved that our kids have known that in a crisis, when there's some level of like, oh no, what's happening here, that they can depend on you. Even from the time they're little going, there's a thunderstorm, to a 3-year-old, this is a crisis, that they come running into mom and dad's bed and go, I'm scared. And dad's like, okay, I got you, right? There's nothing to be afraid of. Or there is a problem, but I'm fixing it. And I think what a gift to know that we can depend on you, versus I think what you probably grew up is your dad was the crisis, right?
Right. And then
he was the cause of
what are you bothering me about?
Right.
And so I felt and I had a younger brother, a year younger. And so I felt like, in fact, he called me dad for a season because I was his only source. I wanted him to know that it was going to be okay, even if I had no clue that it was going to be okay. And so with our kids, I never lied to them. Like when things were like storms coming through or there's tornado warnings and we're in the basement, I say, hey, this could not end well, but I'm right here with you through the whole thing. And so praise God, we never had a tornado destroy our house or anything like that. And I know people who have had that happen. But what I wanted our kids to know, that if this were to happen, the worst case scenario, we're going to get through it, and God is still God. He is still good, even if this were to happen. And so we, to this day, I still will have kids call me when storms roll through, like, "Hey, what are you thinking?
Are you watching the radar?"
What are you thinking?
No, exactly. And living in the Midwest, those tornado sirens were a pretty common occurrence, and they kind of knew, but they always looked to you to go, like, what should we do?
And I learned early, if I'm at peace, they're at peace. It is the craziest thing. I could be like tornado. I could be looking out my front door. Now, that for me, that's kind of exciting, but you get the idea. I can see a tornado coming at me, and if I'm at peace, they're relaxed. And I think there's something really cool about that. And that's what I think. I one of the things that I missed out on was my parents were always there was always turmoil. They were never at
They were
peace.
the crisis. Yeah.
And so that crisis just kind of bled right into me. I absorbed that. And how cool it is that our Heavenly Father is always at peace. So we can find peace by leaning into Him in the same way. And, one of the things that we talked about a lot as the kids were growing up was this idea of being present. And I think in those moments when they needed that peace and they could lean into that, it's because I was there in the moments that didn't seem to matter.
Right.
Like if you're only there in the crisis, then you don't earn that same kind of trust than if you're there in the mundane and then the crisis arrives, you're able to, at least that's what I saw in our children. I was able to extend that peace in a very trustworthy way because I was there in the day in and day out.
I do have a memory though of like, there's so many memories of tornado sirens, so they all kind of blend together. But there'd be like, and I think our one son was really into weather and watching the radar, and they might have started getting scared. And they're like, I think it's a tornado. And I think they're like, and Dad's like, it's fine, we're gonna watch. And they run down to the basement anyway. Like, I'm going without you.
Yeah.
It's like, how's that going to pan out? Like, okay, if you feel safe in the basement, that's fine.
Well, and we had a room. It was underneath the basement stairs. We had a room. It had pillows in it. It was a shelter room for in those things. So I think a part of them just enjoyed being in the shelter, like a little fort.
Like, I don't care. The rest of my family's upstairs. I'm going to go down. But
they were also very quick to say, Dad, I'm scared. Would you come down?
Yeah.
Because they weren't necessarily in that moment scared for them. They just didn't want us to get hurt either. And so I think it's our responsibility in those moments, not only to extend peace and to extend this level of strength, but also be smart about it. I probably wasn't always super smart because I wanted to see the tornado.
But Dad's watching, right? And that's and like you said about presence, just being there. And I was just sharing this today with a friend about that too, that you don't realize it until almost you're on this side of parenting to go, you were around a lot. And that can be varying degrees of a lot depending on your situation. But just the kids remember Dad being home. The kids remember Dad being around, and didn't have to be an event. It didn't have to be a special occasion or a date in the calendar that Dad was going to be home. It's like, Dad's around.
Steve, our son that we were visiting, said, he said it really meant a lot to me when you would take a vacation from work just to stay home and be with the family. And at the time I was like, oh, our kids are hating this because they'd rather be out at Disney World or wherever. But no, it meant
Worst
a
case,
lot.
they'd rather you be back at work. No, Dad's going to hang out with us.
It meant a lot to him that I was willing just to be with him for a week, even if it wasn't doing terribly exciting things. And you reminded me of that all the time because I was always like, we need to do something more exciting, or we need to go get ice cream again, or whatever it was. And you're like, no, just being with them is enough. The ice cream will come. Those fun things will come, but let's just be present. And that was a great reminder.
Right, because there's such a high prevalence, though, of dads that are absent, either absent altogether by abandoning their family, absent in spirit, right? There's all different degrees but it's something that stays with you forever. My dad was not there. And for you had a dad in the home on and off, mostly absent, or in the home, but not really engaging.
And I saw, I learned a lot of that through your dad, Tara. I saw a lot of what I didn't know that there was a healthy home until I met your family. But I watched the way your dad, he always was aiming for home. No matter where he was, no matter what he was doing, his target was to get home and to be with his family. And I saw that in real time. And it was like, that's what I want to be. I want my kids to grow up and say that about me. His heart was always aimed toward home.
Right. And I think same thing. My dad had a regular job and he worked third shift. So he was home during the day, mostly sleeping, a little bit like our situation. And it's funny that even though it messed with our schedule sometimes, because we always had to work around when Dad was sleeping, people who live in that life, so I can understand, like sometimes the shifts get off and they're sleeping. But number one, it was always cool as a kid to know my dad was there, even though we had to be quiet and don't wake up your dad and don't fight and don't whatever. That piece that says my dad is there. And then, coming down the stairs at 3:30, and starting up with us. And his aim to be as many things as possible, whatever we had going on, be around in the evening. So it's like, I think of my childhood and go, did my dad have a job? I never saw him work because he was at work when I was sleeping.
He was at work when you were sleeping, yeah.
So, but it's like, what a gift that was, right? To know my dad was present, around, available, involved.
I remember asking you at one point, I'm like, does your dad ever sleep?
Like, I don't think
he was at the church events. He was at your
school events.
School events, and yet he still worked full time and overtime a lot.
Yeah.
But I saw that, and what I took from that was his heart was always aimed to be with his family. There was nothing, golfing, whatever he loved to do, it was never better than being with his family. And it's not like he forsake all of that. He still golfed. He still did those things. But his heart was always in the posture of heading home.
And spending time with his wife, right? He loved that.
Right.
So this is more of a fun one, Joe, but what makes you a good dad, and what I know that our sons will be phenomenal at this, is making their kids laugh. In fact, baby laughs are really fun. Just watching them get all so goofy in the games they start to play to get the smiles out and get the first laugh. And you were very good at that, even though I know you struggled with, like, what do we call that? Like feeling relaxed.
Yeah.
You love making our kids laugh.
Some of my favorite memories from when they were younger was I would get home from work and I would get them going on the floor. And my goal was, especially once we had 4, get all 4 laughing at the same time. And it wasn't easy because you got to keep being creative.
We should try that in real time next time we're all together.
But it was, when all 4 were laughing, that's when I was like in my moment, like, this is so good. And I remember just looking over at you a few times because when you're raising 4 kids, there's also a lot of chaos going on. There's a lot of not so great days especially when your kids get into their teens. And by the time that happened, you can't roll around on the floor and make them laugh.
You'll get beat up too.
Yeah, right. But I remember looking over at you and you just smiling as the kids are laughing. And their thing with me was always, I got to go potty. That was their way of breaking free from whatever it is.
Joe's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Like, okay, go, you're free. Or tickling them or whatever we were doing at the time. But it was fun to watch how God bless that effort, because what started out as just tickling them or making them laugh when they were little became much more sincere senses of humor, right? In development of making them laugh at genuinely funny things. And we, as a family, Tara, that's one thing I'll look back on. And even in the midst of the most chaotic times and the times when maybe I failed as a dad or whatever, one of the things that I'm really grateful for is we always knew how to laugh together.
But I think the opposite of that, so I'm thinking, what's the contrast with your family? I don't think you ever laughed with your family, but you might say that your parents or dad laughed at you. And I think that's the other side of that knife, right? Is learning to use your humor in a way to cut someone down rather than grow community. So there is a little bit of that influence in your life going, I don't want to laugh at my kids versus laughing with them.
And I don't think, it's interesting you say that, because I don't remember my parents ever laughing at me, but the idea of using jokes, make fun of me.
Right, using jokes, that's what I mean, using jokes to put down rather than grow community.
Or reminding me I'm not good enough, or reminding me what a failure I am, or reminding me of how I failed at this, embarrassing me in front of others. Those are
those things you hear. And again, I don't have that experience, but like the jokes that a dad tells at his kid's expense, like, will never leave. Like 30 years later, it still bothers them. You know what I mean? It's such a powerful word they have in their lives. And
I have forgiven those in that parental role that did that, but it still can catch up with you at times. And I think, I don't know, it's such a crazy thing, but I actually will ask my kids occasionally, my adult kids now, I'll be like, hey, you never felt like I did that, right? And the primary thing is, hey, if you did, let's talk that out, because it wasn't intentional to hurt you. But the coolest thing is when it has happened, and I think it's happened a few times that I can think of off the top of my head, where I said a joke and they felt it was at their expense, they were able to come talk to me about that. Like, Dad, that really hurt when you did that. And I was able to say, hey, I am sorry I did that. Here was my intent. I understand how that really went south. But being able to work that out right away. And I think if my parents had done that, like, obviously I was raised in very abusive situations, they weren't thinking about that at all. But had they been thinking about that, and had we been able to correct that right away, I think it makes a huge difference, right?
Yeah, you can mitigate it. You mentioned getting all the kids laughing. The other thing I think I loved, and this is more so with our boys than our daughter, but like, roughhousing. This is Dad's
Jolie got into it a lot when she was younger. Yeah.
But at a certain age, the girls, phase out of that, and the boys never quite never get tired of roughhousing. Yeah. But I think I've read so many good studies and explaining that role of roughhousing for a dad, and the idea of going, we're going to battle each other a little bit. We're going to kind of go man to man and head to head, but we're also going to have really strong boundaries around this. Like you said, I got to go pee.
Yeah.
You're released from the roughhousing.
Yes.
Or like learning how to they call it like using their strength, right? Learning how to corral your own strength and not be out of control.
Yeah.
That we're going to roughhouse, we're going to have fun with it. We're going to kind of push you to the edge a little bit, and then we're going to back off and say, that's enough.
Yeah.
And that freedom and that laughter. But yes, there's an age where those boys just wanted to test you to see, could they get you down? Could they pin you to the floor?
Oh, we went through a season where it was tag team against dad. There was
a small time where all three of them,
and it was fun because, and then Sawyer would get in on it as a 2-year-old or whatever. But it was fun because I was stronger than all three of them combined
for a small window.
But yet, so I would let them win for a little bit, and then of course you wrestle out and you're like, aha, and the kids are like thinking they're winning, and then there's such fun memories there, such fun memories. I will tell you this though, I think pretty much all of my kids, I don't know that I could wrestle them one-on-one anymore.
Yeah, 3-on-1.
They would take me out. So they're very, very strong.
But remember what you need to do if you're ever in that place.
Yes. Hey, I got to run to the
Just say, I've got to go to the bathroom, and
yes.
maybe they'll be out. Then probably the most important thing, talking about dads and what made you a good dad is you submitted to the will of God rather than submitted to your own wishes, right? The idea of going, I want to do what God wants me to do versus I want to do what I want to do. And not, again, we always say this, Joe, you weren't perfect at that, but I think I saw your heart always postured towards, I need to submit to God first, not just, well, here's what I want to do in my kids' lives, and they have to listen to me, just my will, versus going, I'm really trying to chase after God and how I lead these kids. Obviously, your parents was just, here's what I want to do, and it was not even healthy.
There was no God in the equation.
Right, versus the difference that has made in their lives.
I think the best way to describe that, though, because I didn't always get that right. There were times when you're in the heat of the moment and you don't necessarily. I'm a processor, so if I don't have time to process, sometimes I don't make the best decisions. But I think the best way to the analogy for that is that I was holding on for dear life. I've got a brother who's serving time in prison. I've got just horrific history of how it should not be done. And I knew because I was raised in that without intentionality and making conscious decisions, that was the route by which it was going to go. And I didn't want that. So I think most days, the reason I submitted to God like that was because I felt I had no other choice. I was holding on for dear life, and there was no plan B. This was my plan. And so I needed God to help me every day get to where I needed to be the kind of father that he entrusted his children to on this planet. And it sounds interestingly, maybe even weird in a way, but part of what the weight that you saw in me was exactly that, was that I knew it was a serious job. And I didn't want my children, the 4 that I was absolutely directly responsible for, being in their adulthood, dealing with the things that I was dealing with, even on a small scale. I didn't want that.
I think what to summarize that is you're dependent on God and not yourself.
Yeah. But what I want to say
That's
is
what I hear you saying, like,
yes,
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes. It wasn't like I was a great Christian though. No. It really boiled down to this idea that I knew in and of myself, I would screw it up. I knew it, and I didn't want to screw it up. So it's kind of like, I want to eat, and the only place there's food is right there. So people are like, hey, you gave in to God. You surrendered to God. Well, yeah, because he had the food. It's like, that's what I needed that. So I honestly can tell you, it's not like I came from a rich family or I came from this where I had all these options. I had one option. That was it. I surrender. I trust God, or it's jail or whatever it would have turned out to be. So, I don't know. I mean, I appreciate the compliment. You like to say that you did a really good job, Joe, with surrendering to God, and thank you for that. I received that.
That was your heart posture. It doesn't mean we
yes.
always accomplish it in the perfect way, but that was your goal.
Also, God knows that I had no other choice. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. He filled in.
Yeah, he makes up the difference. Yeah. He absolutely does. But thank you. I did. To the best of my ability, I wanted God involved in every decision. There were times I ran ahead of him and I got behind him and all of that we do in regular life. But when it came down to the day in and day out, I wanted God to lead because I was not equipped to do so, to be the kind of father and husband that I wanted to be.
Well, and part of that man job, that dad job, is passing on that wisdom. It's like we look at the book of Proverbs. This is all just a dad saying, okay, son, here's what you need to know. Here's the roadblocks. And I think you've done a great job with that. And I think that has kind of come in more as of late with now that our sons are grown up. You know, some of it, the stuff's happening when the kids are kids. And there's some teaching that happens when they're teenagers. And then there's different kind of teaching that happens when they're adults. But I think more than the things that you were teaching them, in the end, it's their example that they're watching. Yeah. It's watching to say, you know, they don't remember your words as much. They do remember some things we said a lot, but like, what did you example? And so setting the example of all these things.
They remember the words more as cliches. Dad, you used to say these funny things. What in the world did that mean? Or
these things we do say over and over again. And like, yeah, we did probably oversay that. But in the end, if your actions aren't matching those
exactly
principles, that really is only a joke and not something they take to heart. So again, it's a big job. And watching our boys become dads, I'm like, oh man, it's a big job. And even though maybe they were set up for success and they have the right ingredients, it's still like, that's overwhelming.
Yeah. So the best thing we can do for them is pray for them and be available for when they have questions or, hey, Dad, and it's fun now that they're having kids because we will get those kind of calls. Hey, Dad, I remember this. Explain to me why we did it this way. Or
yes.
One of the questions I was asked recently, which was incredible, was how did you get to that result? I want that result, but I don't quite know how to get there. And so we were able to talk that through, the decisions that you make. And honestly, looking back, we're now at 29 years of marriage, and where we are, I am so grateful that God blessed that effort and we were able to get here. But it was because I was asking the question 30 years ago, where do I want to be in 30 years? And I think that's really important.
Well, even though we've raised our kids 3/4 of the way, we're on the tail end. In some ways, though, as a dad, you're still growing and learning because now we're the dad of adult children,
and it's dad
and it's a whole different it's a different role. Again, maybe not so much roughhousing anymore, but there is sometimes that idea of being a point in crisis when adult kids have a crisis and being there. So I think it's fun to see the way you are staying the same as a dad, but then also a whole new part of you coming out as we enter this new stage.
Man, I'll tell you what, though, what do they say? I'll say that youth is wasted on the young, right? I look back and I'm like, why couldn't I have been this relaxed?
This information would have been helpful 20 years ago.
I'm having so much more fun and I'm so much more relaxed and I'm not worried like I was. And I wish that's a gift I could have given to my younger self, but I'm hopeful that I can pass that on to my sons. And by the way, they're not going to worry like I did because they had a very different upbringing.
There is a different pattern.
So I find joy in that. I think I tell you all the time, I'm like, I'm having the time of my life. I don't know why I couldn't have had it 20 years ago, but I'm having the time of my life. So God has been really good.
Even our mistakes and our shortcomings, but I have loved watching you become a dad, pretty much finish your journey of dadding, and then yet a whole new stage coming up. So happy Father's Day to you, Joe.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining us today. Would love to hear from you. If you want to share maybe something we talked about really stirred something up for you, please drop us a line anytime. Tara, T-A-R-A, at BehindOurSmiles.com. And if you did want to give a good Father's Day gift, a 5-star rating would rock.
Oh, look at that.
Or a review on Facebook or Instagram, or a review on the podcast platform by which you listen. Thank you for hanging out with us. We'll see you again next time.